Flight attendant kicks sick billionaire's son. Dad strikes back seconds later. The cabin lights were still warming up, that soft morning glow settling over the rows of passengers like a blanket. When 7-year-old Malik took his seat in 3A, he held his inhaler tight in his small hand, knuckles pale against brown skin, his breaths already a little uneven from the cold he'd caught the night before. His father, a man the world only recognized through headlines and stock reports, hadn't boarded yet. He was on a call just outside the jet bridge, wrapping up a global deal that would change markets before breakfast. But inside the plane, Malik was alone, and to one particular flight attendant that made him an easy target. Sabrina Cole had built a reputation at 35, polished smile, tight uniform, a posture stiff as her principles. She liked rules, she believed in order, and she especially believed children should be silent, still, and invisible on her aircraft. When she walked down the aisle and noticed Malik sitting with one leg tucked up, trying to ease his breathing, she didn't see a sick child. She saw disobedience. "Feet down," she snapped, voice sharp enough to cut air. Malik blinked, startled. He lowered his foot slowly, inhaler shaking in his hand. He didn't talk back. He rarely talked much at all when strangers stared. Sabrina watched him longer than necessary. There was something about him she didn't like. Maybe the quiet confidence in his eyes, maybe the luxury watch on his tiny wrist, maybe the fact that he sat alone, clearly belonging to someone important. She felt challenged by his presence, though he'd said nothing. Passengers settled, storage bins clicked shut, engines rumbled gently beneath the floor. Malik leaned forward slightly, trying to catch breath, but it wasn't enough. He whispered to Sabrina when she passed again, voice thin as paper, "Ma'am, see, could I have water, please?" She turned, brows drawn. Normally she would have fetched it, small things kept order, but not today. Something inside her snapped like a tightened thread. Maybe she was tired, maybe she felt watched, maybe power tasted too good. "You can wait," she said coldly. Malik nodded, small shoulders curling inward. He placed his inhaler to his lips and took a shaky puff. Sabrina's jaw tightened. "No inhalers before takeoff," she said, snatching it with a sudden motion. His breath stopped, his eyes widened in panic. He reached for it, just a reflex, and Sabrina stepped back sharply as if he were attacking her. One swift kick from her polished shoe caught his leg, not hard enough to break bone, but hard enough to make him gasp, fold, nearly fall from the seat. Passengers froze. A woman 2 rows back covered her mouth. A man in headphones slid them off slowly, unsure if he had seen correctly. Sabrina's voice filled the silence. "Sit properly, behave, or you're off this flight." A sick child, trembling, fighting for air, and she stood over him like he were an inconvenience. Malik's eyes filled, not with loud sobs, but with a quiet hurt that pierced deeper than screams. He looked toward the front of the plane, hoping to see his father stepping through the doorway. Nothing, just strangers staring and doing nothing. A minute passed, then another. Each breath got tighter. A cough rattled his small chest. Outside the plane, footsteps sounded, calm, steady, deliberate. A man in a charcoal suit finished his call, slid his phone into his pocket, and thanked the person beside him. He stepped through the gates slowly, unaware that the moment his shoes touched the aircraft floor, everything inside would ignite. This was no ordinary parent boarding late. This was Langston Hale, founder of Hale Dynamics, Fortune listed, a billionaire who built an empire from zero. But in that moment, none of his power mattered. He wasn't thinking about stocks or acquisitions. He was thinking only of his son, the boy he raised alone after losing his wife to a respiratory illness years earlier. Malik was all he had. Malik was his world. He entered the cabin with a quiet presence that rolled like thunder no one heard yet. Passengers glanced up, some with relief, some with dread, because they knew someone finally had authority to intervene. Langston reached row 3. Malik's face lit with fragile hope when he saw him. But before the father could speak, Sabrina turned with that same steel voice. "Sir, your child is being disruptive. He needs discipline." Langston's smile faded slowly, like sunlight slipping behind storm clouds. He knelt beside Malik, hand gentle on his cheek. He noticed the inhaler missing. He noticed the red mark on his son's leg. He noticed the tremor in his breath. He stood back up, straightened his suit. Eyes darkened, not with rage, but with something far more dangerous, controlled fury. Passengers held their breath. The engines seemed to quiet themselves. Sabrina didn't realize yet, but her world was about to split open. And this time, nobody would be looking away. The aisle felt too narrow for the silence that followed. Passengers stared over magazine edges, phones halfway raised though none dared hit record, yet tension this real needed only eyes to witness it. Langston slid into the seat beside Malik, one arm wrapping around his son like a shield. His other hand remained free, grounded, calm, but his expression was a storm held by one thin thread. "Tell me what happened," he said softly. Malik tried to speak, tried to push words between struggling breaths. His voice came out shaky, broken at the edges. "She took my inhaler, and I can't," he wheezed, clutching his chest. Langston's jaw flexed once, barely noticeable, but enough to show the pressure building inside him. He glanced up at Sabrina, who crossed her arms like the authority was hers to hold. "I followed airline procedure," she defended quickly. "He was being uncooperative. Children must follow instructions." A passenger, older, silver hair neat against his collar, cleared his throat from 4C. "He asked politely for water," the man said. "He could barely breathe." Another woman leaned forward. She kicked him. We all saw it. Sabrina's eyes flashed, cornered, defensive. "I did no such thing," he overreacted. "Kids exaggerate." The confidence in her voice wobbled, as if she knew the floor beneath her integrity was cracking. Langston didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "Did you take his medication?" Sabrina hesitated, one heartbeat too long. "Yes," she finally snapped. "He didn't need it, and I won't be disrespected by." He stepped closer, not towering, just present, unwavering. "Where is his inhaler?" Every word landed like a verdict. The other flight attendants stiffened near the galley, unsure whether to intervene. Their training hadn't prepared them for this, not the billionaire, not the witnesses, not the possibility that one of their own had gone too far. Sabrina laughed under her breath, brittle as glass. "You think you can intimidate your way through policy? This flight will leave the way I run it. If you have complaints, speak to the captain or security." Langston didn't look away. His voice remained still water, quiet, deep, dangerous. "You've mistaken calm for weakness." Malik coughed again, harder this time, a small body folding like paper. The sound tore through the cabin. Strangers winced. A mother down the aisle held her baby closer. Langston reached for the flight phone panel built into the wall. His fingers hovered, patient, as if giving Sabrina one last chance to step back from the cliff she'd put herself on. She didn't. Instead, she stepped forward, pointing a finger at him, her tone clipped, sharp. "I've dealt with entitled parents for 15 years. I'm not afraid of you. Sit down, or I'll have you both removed before takeoff." Passengers inhaled sharply. Some shook their heads. One whispered, "She doesn't know who she's talking to." Langston finally pressed the call button. Bing! The intercom light above flickered, summoning the captain, not rushed, not panicked, calm as a man dialing into a meeting he already knows he will win. Sabrina's confidence wavered. "You really want to escalate this?" she hissed. He turned to Malik, gentle again, like thunder pausing to kiss the earth. "You're okay," he whispered to him, voice full of warmth that cut through ice. "Breathe slow, I've got you now." Then he faced her fully. "No," he said, "I'm not escalating, I'm correcting." The cockpit door opened, the captain stepping out with the authority of a judge entering a courtroom. Behind him, a first officer and 2 crew members followed, sensing the tension like smoke before fire. The captain spoke neutrally, eyes scanning faces. "What seems to be the issue here?" Before Sabrina could answer, 4 voices spoke at once. "She took his inhaler. She kicked the boy. He could barely breathe. She refused him water. The captain's gaze snapped to Sabrina, shock, then anger tightening his expression. Langston stood slow, tall, but never threatening, simply a man reclaiming what never should have been touched. "I'm requesting his medication returned," he said, "and immediate medical clearance for my son before takeoff, or this flight doesn't leave." It wasn't yelling, it wasn't rage. It was fact, cold, final, immovable. Sabrina opened her mouth, but no words came. Her authority was gone, stripped by truth and witness. The captain's voice cut through the air. "Hand him the inhaler, now." Her hand trembled as she reached into the drawer by the service station. The inhaler appeared, small, harmless, yet heavy with guilt. She placed it in Langston's palm like surrender. Malik took 2 slow puffs, breathing easing, color returning. The plane exhaled with him. But the storm wasn't over. Because Langston wasn't done. He sat back down beside his son, eyes forward, tone controlled, but sharpened to diamond edge. "You'll keep this flight moving," he said to the captain. "But after landing, we're having a different conversation with your board, your legal department, and every shareholder with my number." Passengers watched, breathless. Sabrina swallowed hard. The captain nodded, firm, shaken, understanding exactly who he was dealing with. And in that quiet moment before takeoff, the world shifted. Not loudly, not dramatically, but with the precise calm before a reckoning. The engines roared louder than the cabin ever could, but all eyes were fixed on one point, row 3, where a billionaire father sat with a calmness that felt more dangerous than rage. Malik leaned against him now, breathing steadily, inhaler secure in his grip. The crisis was softened, but far from over. Because Langston Hale wasn't the kind of man who let harm pass quietly. Halfway into the flight, the fasten seatbelt sign blinked off with a soft ding. The cabin loosened, but the tension didn't. Sabrina tried to continue working, but every step she took felt watched. Every drink she poured felt judged. The control she once wielded had crumbled like dry clay. Passengers whispered as she passed. "That's the one. She kicked the kid. She's finished." She kept her eyes forward, chin high, but her hands shook. Then came the moment everything snapped. Sabrina approached Langston with a tray, voice forced steady. "Sir, would you?" Langston looked up slowly. "I don't need service from someone who hurt my child." His voice wasn't loud, but it carried like thunder contained in glass. A ripple moved through the cabin, goosebumps, quick breaths, a collective sense of justice tightening like a noose. Sabrina's mouth opened, apology or defense. No one knew, but the speaker above interrupted. "Ladies and gentlemen, we request the attention of Mr. Langston Hale in the forward galley." The entire plane shifted. Whispers exploded, eyes widened. Reality hit Sabrina like cold water. The captain hadn't dismissed the issue. He'd escalated it far higher. Langston rose, slow, controlled, powerful. Every passenger leaned into the aisle as he walked, a silent army of witnesses. Even the flight crew stood straighter, as though his presence alone realigned hierarchy. In the galley stood the captain, 2 senior attendants, and a live satellite call screen glowing on the wall. Corporate HQ streamed in real time. Someone had informed them. Someone had checked his name. Someone had realized exactly who was on board. On the screen, Chief Operations Officer, Head of Legal, Director of Customer Integrity. Sabrina froze. The COO's voice came through the speaker, sharp as a blade drawn without warning. "Mr. Hale, we received a report that your son was denied medical assistance and physically mishandled. We need a statement now." Passengers gasped. Sabrina's knees wobbled. Langston didn't yell. He didn't gloat. He simply spoke the truth with surgical precision. "My son was ill. She confiscated his inhaler. She refused water. She kicked him when he reached for it. I have witnesses." His voice was steady, but every word landed like a verdict. The COO turned to Sabrina's side of the camera. Is this accurate? She crumbled, no confidence, no armor, only raw panic. I didn't mean, I thought. Langston stepped forward, eyes locked on hers. No child should suffer because an adult needs to feel powerful. Silence. Then the COO responded, final, irreversible. Sabrina Cole, effective immediately, you are terminated. Security will escort you from the aircraft upon landing. Prepare to surrender your badge. The cabin erupted, not in cheers, but in stunned silence heavy enough to shake ribs. Sabrina's world fell apart in real time. She looked around, eyes searching for sympathy, but none came, not when there was a child with breath still recovering, not when truth had spoken. Malik watched from his seat, small hands wrapped around his inhaler, tears in his eyes, but this time they glimmered with relief, not pain. Langston returned to him, kneeling to eye level. You're safe, he whispered. And nobody treats you like that again. Malik nodded, a slow, emotional nod, the kind that changes a child forever, teaching him what strength looks like when it protects instead of destroys. As Langston lifted his son gently into his lap, the plane felt different, lighter, truer, like justice itself had boarded and taken a seat. Not loud, not violent. Just right, the moment wheels touched runway, nobody moved. Not a buckle clicked, not a bag shifted, every passenger waited, eyes fixed on the aisle like it was a stage where the final scene hadn't yet played. Two uniformed security officers boarded before the door even opened fully. Sabrina shrank back into the galley, shoulders curled, the badge that once symbolized authority, now only a reminder of what she'd lost. The officers approached, speaking politely, almost gently, but firm. Ma'am, please come with us. No one jeered, no one mocked her. Justice didn't need noise, truth had spoken loud enough. She walked out of the aircraft alone. When she disappeared down the jet bridge, Langston finally stood with Malik in his arms. He didn't smile, didn't celebrate. He simply exhaled, long, deep, as though releasing the weight of every breath his son had struggled for. News didn't need cameras to explode, the passengers were the cameras. Phones came out only now, not for drama, but for testimony. Within hours, the story flooded social media. Billionaire CEO protects son after medical neglect on plane. Flight attendant fired mid-flight after child denied inhaler. Airline under fire after shocking treatment of sick minor. Airline PR was buried in crisis. Statements were drafted, deleted, rewritten. By evening, headlines multiplied. A public apology followed, corporate, polished, dripping with damage control. But Langston didn't want money. He didn't sue for billions, though he could have crushed the company flat. Instead, he chose legacy. He funded a new air passenger protection initiative, training, medical response protocols, stricter crew accountability. Within months, airlines across the industry adopted it, not because they cared, but because they feared another Langston Hale. Malik, he remembered the flight, not with terror, but with pride. He told classmates about the day his dad stood up for him and how the world listened. One night, weeks later, he asked quietly, "Dad, were you scared?" Langston smiled, gentle, tired, human. "Yes," he said. Courage isn't about having no fear. It's about protecting someone even when you're shaking. Malik held his father's hand tighter. That flight became more than a story. It became a standard. A reminder that power isn't in wealth, but in what you do with it. That children deserve safety, even at 30,000 feet. That one voice, calm and steady, can reshape the sky itself. And somewhere, in a world changed by a single moment, a boy breathed easily, comment, breathe free to show support, then like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories.